Cinebums Film Festival is a big deal.
If you hadn't heard about it before, then you probably you're just an idiot. Yeah, you've just been living under a rock. Yeah.
Yeah, there's Cannes, Sundance, then Cinebums Film Festival, then Toronto, then South by Southwest. So we're like in the middle.
Yeah, we're right in the middle.
Yeah,
still in the middle of the top tier.
And it's our first year, so yeah. So it's we're on a rookie contract, so it's pretty impressive how we were able to ascend so far so fast.
It's almost too much to handle for us, the rapid ascension, but we're here to break it down.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of this as the press conference for the film festival.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I mean, we got four movies from the film festival that we'll be breaking down here. But yeah, I guess how did the film festival really start? You know, I think we had some like big plans for this like multi-day film festival, but yeah, it turned out to be a little more short and sweet. But
it was a little shorter, yeah, because life gets in the way sometimes. But yeah, we mainly decided to do it because John lives in the Bay Area and I live in the Chicago area, and for once we were in the same area, so we were like, let's watch some movies together, and it'll be our little Cinebums Film Festival. And yeah, that's what we did. You know, I watched them all in my parents' basement, so pretty it couldn't have picked a better location.
What
really.
A theater, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got, you know, John got to see my my brother Jake's movie collection.
Yes.
And we spent, you know, at one point like 40 minutes, maybe even longer, scrolling on HBO Max.
That was my favorite part of the film festival.
Just looking for movies.
Just looking at titles of movies to watch.
Yeah. And now we have even a bigger watch list than we did before. And we could probably talk longer about the movies that we didn't watch more than the movies we did, because we had so many we wanted to watch. That's for sure.
I had to step out of the closet because out of Jake's movie closet. Let me clarify. And it was just so overwhelming.
Yeah. My our movie closet here in the basement is it's a little. It's like the Criterion closet of Glen Ellen, Illinois, you could say.
It rivals the Criterion closet. I almost left with a bag full of Jake's movies, but I remember that's not how it works at Jake's closet. This is the first time we had actually seen movies in the same room.
Yeah, pretty much.
Since the Denver Film Festival.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it was an interesting. It was very adventurous for us.
Monumental time.
Yeah, monumental. And so we ended up watching 4.
Yeah, we got 4.
And it sounds like really underwhelming when you put it that way, but
yeah. Come here.
It's 4. Come here.
Got a whiny dog in my hands.
So yeah, some context, a little context on that. Yeah, there's a dog in John's room.
Yeah, we have our producer, the podcast producer, Madison.
Yeah.
And she's whining about me being too boring on the podcast.
Because we're very unorganized, so we need someone with little brains to.
Yeah, we need a little chubby pit bull over here to keep us in line.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, Luke, is that we had 4 movies, but I feel like
they're all very different.
I feel like they're very different but similar in some ways. We have we have two that we watched back to back, which are both very weird and crazy movies.
Yeah.
And then we had another two, which are kind of, which are like polar opposites. One is Marathon Man, where it's very, it's fast paced,
intense, gritty, 70s. Yeah.
And then Driving Miss Daisy, which is also about moving, but it's much more tame and low key. So it's like we have polar opposites for that double feature.
Totally. So should we go in chronological order?
Yeah, let's go in let's start with opening night.
Opening night.
The opening night red carpet.
Yes. Yeah, so after we poured ourselves a couple cocktails, we put on a classic 90s comedy, one that jump-started the career of the monster that is Jim Carrey. We decided to start off with Ace Ventura.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, yeah.
Yeah, and the whole point of this night was we were going to do a second night of this. We were going to do a Carrey-Lynch duo for the first night. So it was Ace Ventura to start, and then Mulholland Drive after that.
Yeah, some very strange, surreal films that pair well with each other, like Ace Ventura and Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, one is through a very much a performance. It's kind of surreal, and another is through just a very focus controlled direction.
Yeah, and there's like people on YouTube will make cuts of like comedy movies, will make them seem very like intense and terrifying, like a horror movie. I feel like there's got to be one of those cuts of Ace Ventura, like a movie trailer of Ace Ventura, but that's a road
I need to go down, is that exact genre of YouTube videos.
I feel like there's like a Mrs. Doubtfire one where it's it's a Mrs. Doubtfire horror movie trailer. And I just feel like there's got to be something similar for Ace Ventura at this point.
There's a short film that someone made where they take like all the scenes of Seinfeld where they're, I think, just sitting there not saying anything or something like that, and it becomes like a really thriller, like existential short film. And I've been meaning to see that for a while.
Oh yeah, I should watch that. Yeah, there's there's videos of the show Friends without the laugh track, and then just like haunting music underneath it. It works really well actually as a horror movie.
Yeah, because Friends is really weird.
Yeah, and especially without the laugh track.
Yeah. And Ace Ventura, like that, doesn't have a laugh track.
Yes.
So I think you could definitely interpret this as a very creepy, strange movie. Definitely leading to a lot of the creepy, strange roles that he did over the next few years, being like the Riddler and the Masked Man, or whatever he's called in that.
Oh yeah. Both early mid 90s movies where Jim Carrey is at his Jim Carreyest. Yeah, and I rewatched The Mask like a few years ago, and I love The Mask. I think The Mask is awesome. Me too. I still am. So I guess for context, I mean, Ace Ventura is definitely my favorite movie growing up.
You've seen it a lot more than me, I can tell.
I probably, up until like college, I had seen it at least like 3 times a year. And it's one of those that every time I was together with my cousins, like every Christmas, it's not a Christmas movie, but we would just watch Ace Ventura and then do the annoying thing that young boys do and just quote it constantly.
You talk with your butt.
Yeah, talk with our asses. I think that's I can look back on like memories of a kid, and I don't I don't know if I ever really had any normal conversations with my cousins back then, or if we just talked in Ace Ventura characters to each other.
That's me and my cousins through like a lot of comedies, mostly Step Brothers.
Oh, Step Brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another very quotable one.
And I actually I recently, this past week, I rewatched Step Brothers, and what's I've seen it probably, the amount of times you've probably seen Ace Ventura, and it's funny when you see a comedy that many times, like, I don't know, trying to like keep finding new ways of watching it, because eventually eventually it's not always going to be that incredible laugh out loud fest that it was, so
yeah, especially after seeing it that many times. But Step Brothers is for sure one of those movies where when I saw it in the theaters, it's just the entire place is like going bonkers.
Exactly.
Everyone is bouncing off the walls, just like I felt like the theater is like shaking with laughter.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But then since then, you know when things are coming, so it's not there's not as much laugh out loud funny, but it's still that's one of those classic comedies.
Yeah, like Ace Ventura, it's becomes part of the culture to the point where people, from across the state can recite the lines to each other, and they'll, find common ground from knowing the same bids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean Ace Ventura, just having his profession as a pet detective is already like goofy enough. And sometimes when I think back on it, like, oh, this is like seems like a kids movie. But then when you rewatch it, you're like,
then there's all the like sex and shit.
Yeah, there's a ton of sex, like even in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of adult humor for sure.
Yeah, but I think the reason he still appeals to young kids is just Jim Carrey is like this master of physical comedy.
Yeah, because he's like kicking a box across the hallway to start a movie. It's it's the best. And
and just everything he says is like some he's just such a character that every line he has is like a quotable line for kids to just repeat. Yeah,
and he's just in a different world than everybody else in this movie. Like, watch it, you could tell like a lot of the performances. I like, it's probably one of my only quarrels with the movie is that I can tell a lot of the other actors don't know what to do around Jim Carrey because he is so odd and doing his own thing. And it makes this very much a one-man show, and a lot of like the scenes, like say with Courtney Cox especially, are very awkward.
Yes, especially because at the beginning she's like, what is up with this guy? This guy is an alien, which he really seems like. He really
is, yeah.
And then there's like a couple scenes where they have more grounded and real conversations with each other, and all of a sudden they're like deeply in love, but it's still it just doesn't really really work.
They become fuck buddies, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's definitely super awkward because everyone is very much just like a normal, regular person. I guess except for maybe Lois Einhorn and Ace Ventura. Maybe she's the only one that's also a little crazy. Well, clearly crazy, but it's just weird because everyone sort of reacts to him as if he is not a mentally ill person when he really seems like he even when he's just doing his job, he actually like does some good like pet detective work. Nobody's like questioning like, shouldn't this guy be in like a home or something?
John, I just need to turn on my fan real quick.
Go for it.
Boiling in here.
Go for it.
Whew.
Ooh, yeah, you're glistening.
That's better.
All right, yeah. So, I guess the one other thing I wanted to like say about that too is there are those like small moments when he's talking with Courtney Cox where he seems like he is a bit of a human. Like there are some human qualities to him. But in Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, the second Ace Ventura that comes out a year after this movie, they went completely crazy, and in that movie he loses all his human qualities, and he is for sure an alien from outer space. There's it honestly, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls was maybe actually I might have preferred that to the first one growing up. Just because it's just constant jokes and quotes and these random and Ace Ventura also has these random pop culture references, which is weird because it's like, when does this guy just like sit down and watch TV? Like, he's so weird, and he's surrounded by all these animals all the time. But then he also like, he goes like, "Hi, Captain Steubing, how are Gopher and Doc?" Like he makes all these weird references to pop culture, that as if this guy, like, in his spare time when he's not doing pet detective work, he's just like a cinephile or just like an avid TV watcher. Yeah, it's just a very odd comedy that would never work today.
No, I mean, yeah, I definitely fell for the sequel trope as a kid. I always was like, the second one's always better, just because it's, it's the nostalgia of they're back, the world is back, and it's, I fell into the marketing scheme that it's like, it's back and better than ever, like, like T2's better, right? Empire Strikes Back is better, right?
Empire.
So's, like Cheaper by the Dozen 2's better than Cheaper by the Dozen 1.
Yeah. Personally, I'm still a fan of the original Cheaper by the Dozen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's offensive to say the sequel is better. Yeah.
No, it actually is, if you actually think that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's with the Ace Ventura saga, I guess you call it, they definitely take the Ace Ventura-ness up to the upteenth degree. But yeah, I mean, for me, the original Ace Ventura still holds up to my nostalgic values, but definitely watching it as an adult as opposed to a child, it's really eye-opening too.
I told you this quote before we started the film. It was like, I was watching Jim Carrey on Howard Stern, and they're talking about the bid of the ass talking bid, which actually goes on in the film for so long. Like, I can't believe how long he does it in front of that poor African American's desk.
Yeah, tone look.
And
yeah.
I think Jim Carrey, after Howard talks about, like, what a brilliant bid, Jim Carrey goes like, yeah, I mean, we were just going for it, either like, this is gonna work or our careers are all over, or something like of that nature. And yeah, you could definitely see that the film is very much going for it, like going for a specific kind of humor that they think is gonna work, and it is like the type of humor that you're either going to love it or hate it.
Yeah.
Or
definitely.
or love it and be weirded out by it, which is kind of where I stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I really think that I think you mentioned this, but like Jim Carrey carries this whole thing, and I think if it were anyone else, this wouldn't work, even in the slightest.
Yeah, and I want to preface that take by like saying, if you actually listen to this podcast, you will know that I watch a lot of weird comedies. A lot of weird comedies, and I'm I'm into weird comedies. Like I like Farrelly Brothers, like The Heartbreak Kid and shit like that.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
I love a lot of weird comedies, and still though, Ace Ventura to me, really was weirding me out. And I do the weird comedies, but Ace Ventura might be one of the weirdest ones I've ever seen.
For sure.
One of the weirder ones that also I say, that definitely works, because I think a lot of the weird comedies I watch are weird because they aren't really working.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's different than.
So it's what makes Ace Ventura unique, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much more to say about Ace Ventura, but. I feel like if this is one you haven't seen since you were younger, that it deserves a rewatch now, and yeah, you can see if you still have those nostalgic feelings for it, or if you're just way too weirded out by this. Yeah.
All right, that's movie number one. After this, we took a quick basketball break.
Yes.
But then it was right into Mulholland Drive.
Jumped right back in. Yeah. Yeah, we needed just a small break before we got into this. And we were debating whether we should start with Mulholland Drive or finish with
and end with Ace Ventura. Either way, I think it would have ended in a somewhat dark, weird fashion.
Yeah. At the end, we still would have been like, whoa. Okay.
But Mulholland Drive is very definitely objectively the scarier movie, because when this film ended, we were kind of like, whoa. We're like, Jesus.
Don't really know what to say right now. Yeah, need to let this sit.
And we had both seen this movie once or twice before, right? Mm-hmm.
I'd seen it. This is my second time, so
yeah, this was my third time.
Yeah. So it wasn't as terrifying as I remember because I could prepare myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those that I like walk away from, and I'm still like a little disturbed by by what I just saw.
Yeah.
But also in a good way.
Yeah, and we're both kind of somewhat seasoned Lynch heads. Like you've seen the first part of Twin Peaks. I've seen all of it. We've both seen Inland Empire. And
I think this is the only Lynch that I have seen multiple times now.
Oh, okay.
Which
nice.
Is kind of a travesty, but yeah.
What I usually hear about this movie is that it's like one of the more accessible ones, Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But the thing is, what frustrates me about that is like I still don't like fully like understand Mulholland Drive.
No.
And I've seen it 3 times, and I've definitely made a lot of progress, but I still feel like I need to watch it just one more time in order to fully grasp it.
Yeah, I definitely, it's definitely one that I still have to just think about for a long time to really comprehend what all just happened. And even, when it takes sort of a big turn in that final act, it's still, you're still sitting there a while with sort of how these characters' dynamics just completely change, and you're still trying to figure it all out then as it's happening. And then, even when the movie's over, there's still so much to digest.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those too where, like every person that you meet along the way holds some significance to like the horror that eventually unfolds. So you kind of have to remember all those interactions
Yeah.
And how everything goes down. And I think it's one of those where I think especially when we rewatch this film again, from the very beginning, knowing how the film turns out, like everything is going to be even more horrifying from like Act 1.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it's one of those that the more you think about everything that happened, the more it almost confuses you or scares you a bit too. Because, yeah, at the end, thinking like, oh yeah, wait, the guy that seems like forever ago, the guy in the office who spoilers, but he ends up shooting the other guy he's talking to, and then shooting through the wall. Like by the end of the movie, I'd almost completely forgotten about that happening, and then I'd forgotten about the two guys in the diner talking. So there's so much that you have to sort of call back to, which will either confuse you more or scare you more. But yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that they bring the film brings back, this is a very much a spoiler Mulholland Drive just episode, but I don't think like spoiling the plot ruins any Lynch movie at all. But I think bringing back the kind couple that Naomi Watts meets on the airplane is like, it's not only unexpected because that's like a scene you think you're like, oh, this is just like a goofy stereotypical thing to have, and that she's she meets them, and she's like, they're like, good luck in Hollywood and blah 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 blah, and then the fact that they comes back and that's the last big scare in the film, after kind of the film does its whole play on Bergman's persona, that's definitely something you won't expect. And I think it's one of those things where when you go back to the airport, when you rewatch this film, that scene's going to be much more creepy than it is funny.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the corniness will be much more creepy, as like the movie's kind of what it's doing is Naomi Watts' character is kind of entering this, as she says later, this dreamland, and it's not the dreamland that most people consider LA. Lynch is kind of taking it as LA, using LA as the scariest place on earth, basically, and using the tropes of the entertainment business and just all the ways the town works as a place for great horror, as he does in like Inland Empire as well, which I love. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it definitely, it kind of goes from this dreamy, like optimistic, seemingly tone very quickly to a nightmare. And I mean, you brought up those two older people in the airport too, and we were like laughing at them in the beginning. It's like this is so goofy. These are like ridiculous characters.
Yeah,
this is way over
it's
the
kind of
top.
like the beginning of Blue Velvet. Like, a lot of the dialogue that Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern have is so ridiculous.
yeah. And then or even like Twin Peaks at times, it feels like a soap opera.
Exactly.
So
if like definitely the season 1 of Twin Peaks, if you've just seen that, you'll get that soap opera-y like dialogue that Lynch has, which I didn't get the first time I saw Mulholland Drive at all, because I wasn't used to that sort of thing.
Same, yeah. It's actually it's good to rewatch this now that I've been more seasoned on David Lynch, because then in the end, those two old people are acting the exact same way they were in the beginning, but the tone is completely different, and that's one of the scariest parts. Yeah. But this is one that I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I won't want to see it again, because it really just piques my curiosity, and there's so many layers to it that like you could get into.
And it's so surreal and so dreamlike that there's so many scenes that you just forget about every time, because it's a long, very surreal film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we were watching it too, there were moments that I didn't remember at all, and even when they happened, I couldn't remember that it happened the first time I watched. So there's a lot to take in, and it's definitely one you don't want to be distracted watching either.
Yeah, you don't want to be on your phone.
Yeah. But I think it was a good pairing with Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I feel similarly to how after we finished Mulholland Drive, that now that we're done talking about it, I'm kind of like, wow, that was very different than, what we watched / talked about before.
Yeah, very different. That is an interesting double feature though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
think that was
experimental
a smart pick
double
by you.
Feature.
Yes, very experimental.
We're not movie watchers. We are artists. I won't reiterate that enough.
Yes, we are movie
Don't make me explain
watchers.
that again.
Yeah, it's like the Oh Hello John Mulaney and Nick Kroll thing. That Nick Kroll, his character, he says he's a Tony Award viewing actor. We are Oscar winning viewing actors.
Oh, that's good. I need to see that.
Yeah. So that was our first
day one.
Opening night.
Yeah, opening night
of the Cinebums Film Festival. And then we there was a little bit of a break, but then we watched two more. After definitely some more basketball while we tried to figure out what the hell to watch. And we went with one that I'm really glad that we kind of picked randomly.
Yep.
That's Marathon Man.
Yeah. I think it's a very mainstream 70s movie. Is it a 70s movie?
Yep, 1976.
Yeah, so I feel like if you lived through the 70s, you saw Marathon Man.
Yeah. And I feel like it's one everyone's seen. The image of Dustin Hoffman holding the gun.
Yep.
Towards the lens. It's one. Yeah, I really didn't know anything about the plot or anything. What it's about, but knew that it's a big deal.
Yeah, it reminded me of like other films from the 70s, such as The French Connection or something like that, where it's just brutally intense.
Yeah, definitely.
And very street gritty.
Very gritty 70s movie. And also directed by John Schlesinger, who did Midnight Cowboy, which kind of had a similar feel to that at times.
For sure. Yeah, Schlesinger is someone I want to get into more, because he's got a lot of other movies I haven't seen, such as like The Falcon and the Snowman, with Sean Penn, which is also a well-known movie that a lot of people saw.
Wow, I have not heard of The Falcon and the Snowman, but I'm totally in on it now.
That does not mean I don't know anything.
But I still
know what
know
I'm talking about, of course. Does it diminish my resume?
Yes, of course, The Falcon and the Snowman. Yes.
Yeah,
very familiar.
Yeah, just recut it with that.
Yes. I'm very familiar with this film. Yes. Mm-hmm. Almost too familiar. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, Marathon Man. It's a graduate history student is wittingly caught in the middle of an international conspiracy involving stolen diamonds, an exiled Nazi war criminal, and a rogue government agent. So Dustin Hoffman, this film clearly has a lot of family backstory that you don't really know about at all, but kind of learn a little more about in the film. And his family is very much involved in some deep shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a mystery, but you get little bits and pieces here and there. But then, yeah, I guess, you can also tell that he is a little disturbed by all that. So he is the one in his family who tries to stay away from that and kind of keep to himself a bit more. And he also doesn't even know all that much about, what went on with his family. So it's a mystery.
Yeah, he just seems like very much an obsessive law student that is very much disconnected from all this stuff. But then when you find out, Roy Scheider is his brother, right?
Yeah.
That
yeah,
can't get that information wrong.
Yeah,
that he's much more connected than you think, and then I think there's more of a realization as the movie goes on, how as he gets captured more and becomes on the run and gets tortured, that he realizes he's how much his family's a part of all this crime. And I think it helps that that he seems like an innocent victim at the beginning, because as he's being attacked, it becomes that much more surprising and thrilling as people are just entering his apartment constantly.
So easily too.
Yeah,
they
so easily
just
coming through
quietly.
the window. Yeah, you gotta close that window, man. And he's just in the bathtub, and it's like he's just like they're coming, and he's
got to start locking the door.
He's locking the bathroom door, and then they just start barging in. It's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah. I actually really love that scene too, because it's so dark and I was almost thinking that he, this is just in his head. He's, we've all been home alone before and heard a noise, that it's almost something like that. But it was very confusing in the beginning too, because he just seems like this normal sort of weird guy who just, he's just running, and he gets to his neighborhood. People make fun of him, and then we're seeing this seemingly government agent, like Roy Schneider, and he's in these important meetings, and he's being attacked, and it's like, okay, well, how does this connect to this random guy who's just running through New York? And then everything starts to intertwine more. Yeah,
and it connects a lot more than you think. I was kind of thinking that it was gonna be like, oh, it's because they're all part of this same place, this fucked up world or something like that. But the fact that they ended up being connected, and Dustin Hoffman gets into the same level of conspiracy that Roy Scheider is, that it just became a lot more of a direct thriller than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also works really well too, because Dustin Hoffman doesn't all of a sudden become some super cool spy, rogue agent like his brother is. He's still very much the same guy who is just going crazy because he's getting wrapped into all of this, and he had a fairly just normal life before, and he's not, he doesn't turn into some James Bond type character taking out all these these Nazis and the guy working for these Nazis, but he's still he perseveres in the end, but yeah, he still seems like very much how this character would react to this situation, and how it all plays out, and being caught up in the middle of this, and then also not knowing who to trust, because he doesn't know anyone who's coming after him, and he doesn't even know that he thought his brother just worked in the oil industry, and so even that it catches him off guard how his brother is all of a sudden being attacked.
Yeah, and then in the finale, as he's got the villain, he's pointing a gun at the criminal mastermind, he ends up admitting, he's like, yeah, he ends up kind of admitting that he knows his like father was involved with all the diamonds and stuff like that, and he's like, your father was weak. Yeah, so it's a really a very interesting layered arc for the character, and Dustin Hoffman just shows again why he was the most popular actor back in the day.
For sure, yeah. And we didn't even mention Laurence Olivier is in this as well, who I think is a great evil Nazi villain.
Yep.
He's almost like a Bond villain in here, but I thought he was a great villain, and especially in the scene where they're interrogating Dustin Hoffman. Thought it was very intense and terrifying.
Yeah, they just keep fucking with the guy's teeth. There's a lot of fucking with teeth in this film.
Yeah, a lot of it, and a lot more twists and turns than I thought too.
A lot more edge on the seat than you think you'd be. It's definitely a top tier edge of your seat movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while
very
a lot
great
of
70s thriller.
Yeah, and while a lot of 70s movies are very much, they're a little more art housey, and they're kind of taking from, like De Palma's like taking from Hitchcock, and all the other like directors are somewhat taking from classic Hollywood and the French New Wave. This movie is very much a piece of just entertainment for outside of the way it depicts gritty streets. I felt this very much was like a Hollywood piece of entertainment that people were rushing to the theaters to see. So I liked that. I liked how it was different like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It wasn't. I don't know. It really kind of exceeded my expectations because I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect going into it. But yeah, now I feel the same way about Midnight Cowboy too, which I didn't really know what to expect going into it, and just another Schlesinger movie that sort of blew me away. So I'm excited to catch the Falcon and the Snowball, movie that I've known so much about for so long.
I've been dying to see it forever.
So I'm finally just gonna sit down, and you know what, John, you just gotta watch this.
You know what? I'm sure it's on HBO Max. I would not be surprised.
What isn't on HBO Max these days?
Okay, so that was 3 of 4.
3 of 4. And so the
we'll end it strong.
Let's end it. Yeah, let's end it on a high note.
Definitely end it on a high note here.
With
our only Best Picture winner of the film festival.
We had to include an award winner in here, with all these just subpar movies that we watched the rest of the film festival. We had to, for our final night, we had to throw in a Best Picture winner, and that's Driving Miss Daisy. And
so I was talking to my parents about this movie the next day, and my dad was doing a really funny just Morgan Freeman impression. He's like, Miss Daisy, what are you doing, Miss Daisy? And that is really this whole movie.
Yeah. It's just a lot of thick Southern accents.
A lot of Morgan Freeman going like, Miss Daisy, you ain't that bad.
No, you was rich, Miss Daisy.
You ain't that bad, Miss Daisy. You a fine woman. You nice. You're kind. And it's like, it's like, no, she's awful. Stop.
Yeah, she's really annoying.
Stop being so nice to her.
Why do you like Miss Daisy so much, Morgan Freeman? What is appealing about her, redeeming at all? Yeah, she's a very annoying old lady.
Yep.
And for the first half of the movie, I thought Morgan Freeman's character's name was Hulk Hogan. I could not understand through their accents what they were saying.
Yeah,
apparently it's Hoke.
So for this movie, I think all like problematic racism aside, take it all away, I still think this movie just is not very good outside of all those problems, and I don't think it really has anything going on, mainly because Miss Daisy is very irredeemable and unlikable, and there's no reason to feel bad for her in any way.
No, Miss Daisy sucks ass. Yeah.
Other than she's obviously she's lonely, but other than that, it's like, who gives a shit? And it's clearly like she's clearly bringing it on herself. Like, I know that like there are lonely old women out there, but like if you're just an asshole one, I don't really care.
Lonely old women, we're talking to you. We know you're out there. Hit us up though. Yeah, it's
hit us up.
I don't really I just didn't really care at all. And
like we said, we did not get the appeal of Miss Daisy.
Yeah, and I just feel like the only reason this is a very well-known movie is because it won Best Picture, because it is like the most Oscar baity type of movie you can have, especially in 1989.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, for mainstream audiences, I can see how they're like, wow, how touching. Like, she hated him for so long, but then he became her best friend. It's like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just that stupid line in the end where she's like, Hoke is my best friend. I was like, oh, why?
Hoke, you're my only friend. It's like, yeah, you guys have really had so many good moments. Like when she taught him how to read, but was like totally rude to him about it. When she was like, I taught kids dumber than nails how to read. And it's like, asshole.
Yeah, and it's, but then he doesn't care at all. He's like, oh, she's so nice. She's like super rude to me, but then
he's just so great. He's just so grateful, really, and he's just unfazed. And I think that's one of the only reasons this movie gained such wide appeal, is because Morgan Freeman, as usual, is super likable and takes all of her shit.
And it's just filled with so many just little Southern sayings that it really put me off. I can't even think of them now, but there's something that they would say like yes'm like all the time. It's just like they try to fit in all these like stereotypical little Southern sayings from back in the day.
And like the shittiest thing she does to him is when she just straight up goes to see Martin Luther King and leaves him in the car.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's so shitty. And it's supposed to be a moment where I don't know, they're like I think that is you could say is the rising action of the movie, if you could call that there is any rising action in the movie. Like, the peak of conflict in this movie is when she's like, Miss Daisy, why didn't you ask me if you wanted me to go? Why didn't you ask me earlier? And it's just like, it is like, yeah, why did she do that? And the rising action is legit that he has to wait in the car, and she sits in there and kind of feels bad about not letting him in, which it's just kind of a weak story beat for sure, and you just kind of hate her more because of it.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's like, are we supposed to be like, oh, isn't that nice that this old white lady said, I like Martin Luther. They're like in the car.
Yeah,
she's like, I like Martin Luther King Jr.
I think he has a lot of great ideas.
And then the Academy's like, wow, this broke new ground. We had an old white lady saying she liked Martin Luther King Jr. Oh my God.
It's just, there's no character growth throughout any of this for anybody. No. Not Morgan Freeman. He stays the same in the beginning as he was at the end.
It felt the movie felt the exact same way the whole time.
And the movie thinks that there's a lot more meaning in their relationship than there actually is. It's much more hollow than the movie thinks it is, and a lot more one note than it thinks it is.
Yeah. And I feel like it's almost like insulting to black people too. I'm not a black person, so I can't say whether or not they'd be insulted, but just with how I feel like how obvious it tried to make Morgan Freeman seem like a normal person for this time too, like bringing up, oh yeah, my all my kids are off doing all these great things, as if we're supposed to expect that Morgan Freeman is just this single guy who doesn't have anything going for him. He's like out of luck, and that he wouldn't have kids that are out doing things. And he's like, oh yeah, my granddaughter did this, and like at the end he's like this, he's like doing really well, and he's just this nice normal old guy, but almost treating the audience as if we're supposed to expect that he is just this pathetic black man that can't read and just has nothing going for him until he meets Miss Daisy, and she she changes his life somehow, when really he's doing fine.
In a way, yeah. You're right. That this job is actually benefiting him a lot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It
and
it really felt like the same.
There really should be more moments in it where, like, the pee scene where he's just like there should be a lot more moments of just strength of Morgan Freeman's character where he's like, Miss Daisy, I am a man and I'm going to pee. Like there should, like, that's one of the only times where he's just like, I'm not taking this. Like, I have some self-respect, and it is actually it's a good moment, but there's so much others where he's just doing all of everything she says.
Yeah. And they, of course, slipped in that classic trope of the cops coming by to question what this black boy is doing with this old white woman.
The amount of times we have seen that scene at this point.
Yeah, it's
and they straight up say, "What is a Jew doing with an N-word?" They straight up say
that line. Oh, so stupid.
It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's like, what world is this movie in? Like, I get it's the deep South, but they also say Jew as in to say, like, oh man, I feel really bad for Miss Daisy too, because she's oppressed too, just as much as him. It's like, no, she has a bunch of African Americans. She has like 10 African Americans working in her house.
Yeah, to do what? Like, what does she need help with? She doesn't do anything.
And she treats them all like shit.
Yeah, she just yells at them, and
So there's one scene that I want to talk about where we both laughed at. It's a scene. It's just when they're on that drive, and it's kind of a like road trip montage with like meaningful music where the movie's definitely just like trying to let that do the work, where I don't know, it's like their drive is supposed to be with Morgan Freeman in the front seat driving and Miss Daisy in the back seat as they go across whatever the Alabama countryside. It's supposed to be meaningful with this meaningful road trip music, and I think we both laughed during that part because there isn't anything to take away from that. Like I said, you take all the racism aside out of this movie, there is nothing going on at all.
No,
that the movie thinks it is, and it reminds me of say watching Todd Phillips's Joker, and there are a lot of scenes where they hold on something and then play some music and expect that, oh yeah, this is, it's like, this is supposed to be a meaningful, moment. And just like that drive, the drive in Driving Miss Daisy, the road trip, it's like we were both like, yeah, clearly there's nothing going on. It's just a man driving an old lady across the country. This is like actually pretty boring.
yeah, there's nothing of value here. They're not saying anything profound.
And the movie plays like a score. Hans Zimmer actually scores this film, and they'll bring in his score in moments to be like, oh, this is very meaningful and feel good. And it's like, there's really nothing happening here at all. This is very hollow.
Yeah, it was almost more confusing than Mulholland Drive, because there's so many times where I think, the movie is trying to portray that something important or meaningful is going on when I can't figure out what that is. What is like meaningful or actually a value here? And yeah, it seems very hollow, dull, and just like
it's just another Best Picture kind of travesty.
Very simpleton story trying to say something about race and two unlikely friends. Yeah. And then you would think that, okay, well, like, this is 1989. I'm glad, decades have gone by and we're past this. But then Green Book wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to not attack this movie for the obvious, like, race stuff, because I think it's, I think that's an overdone thing today, especially in today's day and age. And I want to like show that this movie's just bad, in general, without racism, because I think a lot of the people that would defend this movie be like, oh, it's just because, of the where we live in a sensitive time period, blah blah blah, so that's why it's like, no, Driving Miss Daisy just kind of sucks. Even if Morgan Freeman was white, it would be just as bad.
No, yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely not because of the times.
Yeah,
it's there's nothing going on. But
at the same time, it is very offensive. To black people.
You can't dismiss that for sure. But it's, there's nothing to care about. There's no conflict. It is just the epitome of an Oscar bait movie, and I guess that's why it's so well known and so popular. But I don't see how anyone can just enjoy this movie and think that this is a movie that you would ever own or rewatch. Because you go to the movies to see something, to be maybe challenged, or to feel something and experience something. And I don't know how you can feel any sort of emotions from this monotone movie. Yeah.
Who made this movie?
Bruce Beresford, who has also, this is the only movie of his I've seen. He's also directed Double Jeopardy, Breaker Morant, now my Letterboxd isn't loading, Tender Mercies, Mr. Church. I haven't seen any of these movies, and honestly, he doesn't seem like a household name to me. Maybe I don't know enough, but and it was written by the same guy who wrote Mystic Pizza. So
Mystic Pizza.
So shocking that we didn't like this movie more.
I did enjoy seeing, like one of those Best Picture winners where you're like, how,
Yeah, right.
I've seen a couple of those, but not a lot. Like, one of those to me, since we're on the subject, one of those to me is that movie from, it's like 2004, Crash.
Yeah, that's like the one everyone brings up is like the...
That's also a travesty. It's the second racist movie to win Best Picture that I know of.
Yeah, it's always a racist movie. Those are always the ones that get flagged.
Yeah, for some reason, man. Yeah. For some reason, then they're like, oh, it's okay, Parasite can win this year, so we're not racist,
guys. We're pretty woke. Yeah. So I really loved Ricky Gervais's Golden Globes monologue this year, where he just straight up told people to leave your agendas out of your speech because you're in no place to lecture the public on anything.
Sure. Sure.
You can go back and Driving Miss Daisy is another one of those movies where you can tell Hollywood
that's right, Joaquin Phoenix. You need to chill, slow your roll on those speeches.
What was he talking about? Milk, or he talked about something so specific and weird.
Yeah, Joaquin goes a little too hard with his activism or whatever in his speeches. I mean, don't get me wrong; a lot of the Hollywood award speeches do make you feel a little better about the world, but Joaquin is a little much.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was how we finished off the film festival.
Yep.
Finished the first annual film festival strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll be doing more more film festival things in the future.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a bit of a podcast hiatus coming up,
Yeah.
but after that we'll be back and doing a lot more. Still got to wrap up the Steven Spielberg series. The Spielberg summer series is gonna end with a couple, maybe one or two Spielberg fall episodes.
Yeah.
But we'll wrap it up nicely, and we'll have a lot more to do after that.
Yeah, we'll kick off fall with a bit more, with just our wrap up of Spielberg, and then we'll get into more. But yeah, we'll take a little hiatus here. Luke and I are not going to be speaking to each other for a while. We need this break, so we'll see some. You'll see some maybe podcasts from a day gone by that we'll repost.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's rerun season on the pod.
Yeah, our summer reruns. So stay tuned for those. If you missed some of our past episodes and they're too far back for you to scroll, then we'll be reposting some of those. So keep an eye out for that.